Welcome viewers. Today, we delve into the chilling story of Gary Leon Ridgway, a man whose name has become synonymous with terror. The name itself sends chills down the spines of those familiar with the dark history of the Pacific Northwest, a region haunted by his heinous acts. He is a name forever etched in the annals of true crime as the Green River Killer, a moniker that signifies relentless evil. His crimes, spanning the 1980s and early 1990s, left a community paralyzed by fear and forever scarred by the loss of so many innocent lives, each one a tragic story. Ridgway's hunting ground was the Seattle area, a place where he stalked and murdered young women, many of whom were vulnerable and involved in sex work, making them easy targets. He preyed on their desperation, their need for connection, their hopes for a better life, exploiting their vulnerabilities without remorse. His methods were brutal, his disregard for human life absolute, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. The Green River Killer's reign of terror began quietly, almost unnoticed. Young women, often living on the margins of society, began to disappear. Their families and friends searched frantically, clinging to hope that they had simply run away or were lost. But as the bodies began to surface, dumped in wooded areas and along the banks of the Green River, a horrifying truth began to emerge. The victims, many in their teens and early 20s, were found strangled, their bodies often posed and left exposed to the elements. The brutality of the murders sent shockwaves through the community and beyond. Fear gripped the Seattle area as the realization dawned that a serial killer was on the loose. Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, was convicted of 49 murders, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. His name is etched alongside other notorious figures, forever marking a dark chapter in criminal history. His crimes spanned from 1982 to 2001, primarily targeting vulnerable women, including sex workers and runaways. These women, often overlooked by society, became easy prey for Ridgway's sinister plans. Ridgway would often strangle his victims and dispose of their bodies in remote areas, particularly near the Green River in Washington state. The river, once a serene place, became a haunting reminder of his brutality. His methodical approach and ability to evade capture for nearly 2 decades left a lasting impact on the community and law enforcement. The fear and frustration were palpable as the killer remained elusive. Ridgway's tactics were chillingly calculated. He meticulously planned each encounter, ensuring that he left no trace behind. He would frequent areas where vulnerable women were known to work, gaining their trust before luring them to secluded locations. His ability to appear non-threatening was key to his deadly success. Once alone, he would overpower them, leaving no chance for escape. The sudden violence was swift and merciless. The meticulous nature of his crimes allowed him to avoid detection for years, as he left little evidence behind. His understanding of forensic science was disturbingly advanced. His ability to blend into society, maintaining a job and family life, only added to the horror. Ridgway's double life was a chilling testament to his cunning. The Green River Killer was not a monster lurking in the shadows, but a seemingly ordinary man living among his neighbors, hiding in plain sight. His normalcy was his greatest disguise. As the years went by, the sheer scale of his crimes became more apparent. Each new discovery of a body added to the growing horror. Each new discovery of a body would reignite the fear and anguish within the community, a grim reminder that the killer was still at large. The community's grief was a constant undercurrent. Despite the tireless efforts of law enforcement, Ridgway's reign of terror continued unabated, casting a long dark shadow over the lives of countless families. The relentless pursuit of justice was a race against time. As the body count rose, so too did the pressure on law enforcement to find the killer. The Green River Task Force was formed, dedicated to bringing the perpetrator to justice. Detectives worked tirelessly, following leads, interviewing witnesses, and meticulously collecting evidence. But the killer, for years, remained one step ahead, a phantom in the night. The years turned into a decade. And still, the Green River Killer eluded capture. Families of the victims lived in a perpetual state of grief and uncertainty, their hopes for closure fading with each passing season. The case, once a constant fixture in the news, began to fade from public consciousness, but for the task force, the pursuit of justice never wavered. In a stunning turn of events, Gary Leon Ridgway was arrested in 2001, more than 2 decades after his reign of terror began. Ridgway, infamously known as the Green River Killer, had eluded capture for years. The arrest came after advancements in DNA technology allowed investigators to link Ridgway to several of the murders. These breakthroughs were pivotal in solving the cold cases. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Ridgway struck a deal with prosecutors, agreeing to plead guilty to 48 counts of aggravated first-degree murder in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. This plea deal was a significant moment in the case. In 2003, Ridgway was sentenced to 48 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was filled with a mix of relief and sorrow. He was sent to Washington State Penitentiary, where he would spend the rest of his days paying for his heinous crimes. The prison became his new, permanent home. The sentence brought a sense of relief to the families of the victims, but it could never truly erase the pain and loss they had endured. Their lives were forever changed by his actions. Despite Ridgway's conviction, questions lingered. He had confessed to 48 murders, but during his confession, he claimed to have killed as many as 71 women. Investigators believed he was responsible for at least 55 homicides in the Seattle area alone. The true extent of his crimes remained shrouded in mystery. The Green River Task Force continued to investigate unsolved murders that fit Ridgway's modus operandi, determined to bring closure to as many families as possible. They meticulously reviewed old case files, re-interviewed witnesses, and followed up on every lead, no matter how small. Their dedication to seeking justice for the victims was unwavering. Section 6. A mysterious transfer. In September 2024, a cryptic development sent ripples through the true crime community. Gary Ridgway, after more than 2 decades at Washington State Penitentiary, was transferred to King County Jail. The reason for the transfer was sealed by the court, leaving the public and the families of the victims to speculate about the motives behind the move. The court order for Ridgway's transfer and the motion to seal the documents were the first additions to his case file since 2017, fueling speculation that something significant was afoot. Was Ridgway facing new charges? Was he cooperating with authorities in other investigations? Or was there another, more sinister reason for his sudden transfer? Section 7. Speculation and theories. Theories about Ridgway's transfer abounded. Some speculated that he was suffering from a health condition that required specialized medical treatment unavailable at the state penitentiary. Others suggested that he had information about other crimes that he was willing to trade for a more lenient sentence or better living conditions. John Urquhart, former King County Sheriff, offered his insights, suggesting that the transfer could be related to providing information in person, possibly about unsolved murders or the location of undiscovered victims. He also raised the possibility of new charges being brought against Ridgway, potentially for murders committed outside of King County where the death penalty remained an option. Section 8. Identifying the lost. Amidst the speculation and uncertainty surrounding Ridgway's transfer, there were glimmers of hope for the families of his victims. In recent years, advancements in DNA technology had led to the identification of 2 sets of remains that had long been linked to the Green River Killer. In January 2024, remains known as Bones 20 were identified as Tammy Lyles, a young woman who had disappeared in 1982. Just months earlier, in December 2023, remains known as Bones 17 were identified as Lori Ann Razpotnik, who had vanished in 1984. These identifications, while bittersweet, brought a measure of closure to the families and served as a reminder that even after decades, the pursuit of justice continued. Section 9. The Shadow of Justice. Gary Leon Ridgway, the Green River Killer, remains incarcerated at King County Jail, his fate hanging in the balance. The reasons for his transfer remain shrouded in secrecy, leaving the public and the families of his victims to grapple with unanswered questions. Will he face new charges? Will he reveal the full extent of his crimes? As the legal process unfolds, one thing remains certain. The shadow of Gary Ridgway's crimes will forever loom large over the Pacific Northwest. The families of his victims, forever bound by their shared tragedy, continue to seek answers, justice, and a sense of peace that may forever elude them. Please subscribe to our channel for more intriguing stories.